Awesome. Let's get started. I'm really excited about this webinar and thank you all for taking the time with us today to jump into systems level thinking. So this is how Nymbl approaches building custom software for all of our clients across different levels of the enterprise. So we'll be going through quite a bit of content today and ultimately show you an example of where we think enterprise software development is going. So by ways of introduction, I'm Martin Mason, co-founder and CEO of Nymbl. For this exercise, I'd like you to think of me as an architect here. I enjoy working closely with our clients, understanding their problems and coming up with tech-agnostic solutions for them. Paired with me today, we have Blair Boylan, who's our Chief Strategy Officer. So a lot of the tech-agnostic, the business understanding approaches that Nymbl has is developed by Blair, and he works closely with many of our large enterprises to structure the approach that we're going to go show you today. For those of you not familiar with Nymbl, so we are an enterprise software consulting company. So we custom develop software solutions for our clients. We have partnerships with a variety of technology companies that we work with, and we're able to pair with them closely to build the ideal custom solution for an enterprise organization. Part of what's unique about Nymbl is that we do have a small contingent of B2B startups that service the enterprise, but our focus is developing these types of system level applications for organizations. We've been told that we're great listeners by a number of customers, so we have a process around understanding the business problem, proposing and playing back solutions, and we do this with a technology agnostic approach, so unbiased to the tech until it's the right time to make the recommendation there. From an agenda point of view, we'll do a bit of an introduction, further introduction to Nymbl and our approach, but that'll set us up for the context in terms of the enterprise software landscape that we're observing today. And a big part of that is how enterprise AI influences future solutions. So we want to show you what we believe the future of software looks like, leveraging applications, Agentic AI, iPaaS solutions, and how that's all coming together to improve the end user experiences for many of your end customers or end users. Towards the end, we'll get to as many questions as we can. As we're presenting along the way, feel free to post into the channel, into the chat, the Q&A chat, and we'll answer them as they come up, or at least get to them towards the end. Okay. So the few of the key messages today that we want to share with you is that we recognize that software development as a whole is changing. So it's becoming more accessible to any enterprise to develop software, whether it's an application or Agentic AI that we'll talk about. And it's not just limited to technology companies. So even if you're an organization where technology is not your core business, oftentimes, and every time, you'll need software to run the key parts of your process, and you're able to build these custom solutions faster than ever because of AI's capability that's being introduced into the market. But what we've observed is many times there's a reactive approach, like, oh, there's a problem, let's throw an app at it, or let's buy a point solution. And oftentimes our clients, at least in the beginning, are not thinking at a holistic level and understanding their business processes first, and then elegantly introducing technology where it makes sense. And it's more important now because of AI, because of this capability and understanding what that broad category means and how it applies to enterprises. We need to do this in a more strategic and business-oriented manner. So what we're going to be showing today as sort of the forward-looking approach is how applications and data and AI all work together to create much better user experiences for our clients. So we're going to show you some examples of systems and applications and Agentic AI agents that we built for our customers. I do want to talk about the journey to this point. So much of the founding team at Nymbl started off developing governance solutions, implementing ERP systems like SAP. We did that for 10 years. And then we saw the white space gap where SAP or the point solution might not solve everything. So we needed to develop custom applications to support all the requirements that a business needs that might fall out of the point solution. Now we're seeing, okay, we have these point solutions, we have these applications. How do we fold in enterprise AI? In this case, we're going to focus on Agentic AI, and how does that modernize software today for, in this case, we're focusing, on the enterprise use cases here. So in order to layer into this approach and how we stand our offerings today, we have to start with an advisory engagement. So we do this either at a small level, depending on the scope of the app, or a large level, depending on the size of the system that we're building. But we start here, we come up with a plan and strategy to address or develop a roadmap. And then we get into the design because we're still building for people. So we need both the product design, which addresses the person experience, and then tying that to any brand design that's required from the organization. Where we get into the execution is around the technologies that we've set up. So of course, when we deploy a new production system or application, we need to support it. But the technologies that support that solution, we've had to adapt to the market and say, we need to do more than application development. So Nymbl's core in the beginning was around developing workspaces, portals, dashboards, reporting, data management solutions. We had to expand and address data synchronization because every enterprise we work with has multiple systems. And now with cloud infrastructure being more accessible, so it's very easy to deploy your own private cloud with containers and all the serverless capabilities that you need access to. These three things got us started for building a system. And now with enterprise AI coming in, we need to address that and integrate that into our offerings. We recognize that we have to integrate with point solutions, of course, like we need to work with an existing CRM, ERP. So there's many of these systems, and we'll show some examples, but those point solutions also need to tap into capabilities. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel, on payment processing, speech to text, or SSO, but how do you integrate those capabilities into a system that you would be building for your organization? So from those examples and that setup, we wanted to share just some relevant use cases. So some of these are at the module level, some of these are standing above one or more point solutions. Some of these are already integrating agentic AI. But you're seeing it's more than just, hey, improve my CRM or build me a mobile app. Like these are multi-user group, multi-department, multi backend system integrations or applications and modules that we'll build for our customers. And we just picked the top enterprises that in industries that we work in. And one of the kind of benefits of working with Nymbl is because we have an AI startup segment, we're constantly practically researching and implementing these AI concepts in real use cases. So there's a lot of like theory and approach and content that's out there, but what we have to do is actually take that and execute. And that's happening both with our enterprise segment and our startup segment. So with all this being said, we do need to understand like how the context of the enterprise is set up today. So Blair is going to take us through like the current landscape and then a bit about how the systems get built, with that landscape in mind.
Thanks, Martin. So if we gonna move over there, we start to look at the landscape of all the different enterprise software that's available to us. As we start to look at this, we categorize those into those point solutions. And as what you can see here is that we do see common logos that go across. So usually when an organization starts to go and look for a new point solution, they're going to look for one that spans across as many of these verticals as they can. So we call that is a software first approach. So what a software first approach is just taking one, and with that approach, you're continually playing a game of firefighting. You're never getting out ahead of the issues that impact organizations' overall health and the ability to deliver value to your customers. So with a software first approach, that comes with fragmented, siloed solutions, an overemphasis on the tool that we're using, less on the process that runs the business. That then entails lower user adoption, and then the data accessibility and quality has issues. So opposed to a software first approach, we move toward a system thinking approach. So really holistically looking at your business objectives and the processes needed to run them. That will then create different interconnections and feedback loops, so they're continually evolving. That will help identify root causes in your processes, and then it will reduce any unintended consequences when you start to change or implement or evolve or tweak or iterate on your different processes. So when you start to look at a system thinking, it results in what we call value streams. And what is a value stream? A value stream is how the different ways that we are creating value for the customer. So whether that be things that we need to do internally, or what is actually delivering something to the customer. So that starts with a workflow. So what are the different tasks or steps that need to happen to create that value? Then we identify what are the different roles. So who are the ones that need to do those different tasks or steps. And then it all is tied together by the different information that's keeping track of that, or that is also created and needed that you can then pass and sequence the different value streams together. So when we look below, we see an example of a typical organization and going across the different departments and the different value streams that you could have inside of your organization. But both organizations are unique, that they have their own value streams, and it's key that you have to lay them out and start to look at how they are applying against the different departments. So then when we take those value streams and we then start to lay them across the different point solutions. So as you can see here is that not one value stream is tied just to one point solution. They run across, and there's a lot of orchestration that needs to happen for it. But as we see with point solutions, is they fall short. So even if you have value streams, they're defined and mapped to those, the organization still struggles. And why that happens is because point solutions don't unify an employee's interface. They're jumping in through those different silos, needing to comprehend and orchestrate the work that they're doing in between them. Also, those point solutions don't always easily integrate with each other. So it's hard to integrate those value streams across the different solutions. Also, when we use a point solution, they don't enhance your data quality. They usually silo it and cost having the same data in different spots. And what they don't do is they don't reduce the cloud sprawl. They actually add to it. So now as you start to layer in these different point solutions, you have a bigger tech footprint that you need to manage. And so how we address this with our customers or with a business operating system. And that's what solves this. So what a business operating system is, it enables roles to optimize value streams and connect them seamlessly across point solutions. So it starts off with us figuring out what are those value streams, what are the workflows, the roles, and the information needed to run those value streams, mapping them across those different point solutions, and then creating what we call role workspaces, which are personalized dashboards, having the role, directing the role to what they need to do across the different value streams, giving them an AI assistant to help them move through the process, the workflows of those value streams, and then even having them manage AI agents that can start to automate pieces of that workflow in the value stream. So when we take a look at just an example of an architecture is that like I said, we break it out into the different role workspaces, the value streams, and point solutions. So taking our example above, showing that the different roles that would have their own dedicated workspaces, the different value streams that they go across and connect to, and the different point solutions. So this is how we get a holistic view of how your business is operating. And then from there, we'll look into how the workspaces and really the business operating system is built. And I'll pass it over to Martin for that.
Yeah, thanks, Blair. And this visual here helps understand everything that's going on in an organization. From a technical perspective, we address the role workspace. So what are the users seeing upon an interface, or how do they interact? You need to architect for any logic and integration that needs to be built out. And of course, you'll still have your internally managed data sources and then your integrations. So what we want to zero in on today is this new element of enterprise AI being integrated into the solution or the architecture of this business operating system. So the patterns that we've observed with enterprise AI is in these three buckets. I know there's generative AI, there's a few other categories, but these are the common areas that we're developing AI solutions inside these operating systems. And one is enterprise search. So that's being able to search across your organization, across different systems, and being able to get access to content that might be difficult to find, especially if it lives across different point solutions. The one that is really helping organizations speak to each other is intelligent OCR. So we still see PDF documents, files, even faxes being exchanged across organizations, processing that information more intelligently to initiate a schedule or an order, or whatever the case is improved with AI, significantly improved. And then agentic AI is a very broad, it's a very deep capability. So we need to look at this, like, how do we apply agentic AI to an enterprise? So agents need access to those core systems securely, and we also have to consider data sovereignty and compliance requirements that come with that. So we'll show you how agentic AI operates inside a system today. These other two, I have some examples. Enterprise search, kind of everyone can sort of visualize that, but we're going to zero in on agentic AI and then show an example of intelligent OCR as well. But the first thing we have to do is define an agent in the context of what the technical context in this case of what an enterprise would look for. So everyone knows what a large language model is. Like if you're working inside ChatGPT, you understand like that capability. What's different with an enterprise is that API access layer. So the ability to create, read, delete, update systems of record securely, and also in context of who's initiating that interaction. So what access do they have to the systems? Is it limited by data? Is it limited by system? So those considerations. These interactions we observe can start from an application. It can start through like Slack or Teams as an example, or it might be triggered from another event or like an RPA solution or another workflow solution. The agent then runs down its tasks. So agents can complete quite complex tasks, but because you're using a large language model, you're able to access things like reasoning, reflection, context, which is more the depth of what a large language model has. But you're also able to get access to different tools that an agent can offer, and then even collaborate with other agents. But for the context of today, we're going to zero in mostly on what the large language model brings and the API access layer brings. And then some of this other stuff is just kind of inferred in the solution here. But the other part too is for the IT organizations, they need to configure what the agents can do. So when someone wants to see a set of sales orders, what system is the best for that? Maybe it's dependent on the region. So it's not like you just deploy an agent and at the enterprise, it just runs and does its thing. You configure that through prompt engineering and some other setup in order to set the agent up for success to make sure the user's getting back what they are looking for. So this is the technical layout of what an agent looks like. Commonly, we see the agent use cases in these buckets. I know there's probably more buckets, but it's essentially how do we improve our quality control? What can AI agents do that might be more tedious for a human to do? Naturally improving productivity because they're not having to do the more menial tasks of researching a prospect if you're in sales or analyzing a transcript. So there's also a lot of demand for the knowledge management. So this is covered with enterprise RAG, but those agents have access to that RAG capability and they can play that back in a response on a chatbot or inside an application. And then better compliance and reporting as well to kind of catch where you might be violating a standard that you want to monitor, whether it's through your employee interactions or your client interactions. So how this all comes together, this is just a basic wireframe to sort of set up like how the technologies work together. So you have the initiation of a workflow. So typically someone that wants to start their day will do recent tasks or their daily work. And then you have the applications that we're used to today. This is what you see visually. This could be a table of data, it could be charts and graphs. But now that application can work with an assistant, we'll call it an assistant here, but that assistant is accessing an agent to return results in your requests or help you in context of what you're looking at inside the application. All along the way, you need secure access to your data sources, and then there's probably a vector database to help with the enterprise search as well. So we're going to show you what this representation of this wireframe looks like. But to set this up and kind of what Blair alluded to earlier, let's take a real example. So we're going to take Nymbl's business and show you how we've set up our structure and then get down to what our sales teams need to do to have a better user experience.
Yeah, so as we start to lay out what our business looks like, we start to categorize our roles into different operating pillars, and these pillars are going to own the different value streams of the organization. So then we'll take a look at what are all of our value streams here at Nymbl, and really how we are going to take the core one. You can see that's that road towards the bottom is how we take a lead and go and deliver a product or a business operating system or an application to them. But you could also see that there are other value streams around it that then are connecting into those and passing information to those to help drive and facilitate and orchestrate the different value streams. But also with these value streams, you can see that they go across a bunch of different point solutions. That some are used. As you see, we have the Nymbl. We've created our own point solutions to help the process. But they are still connecting to different collaboration tools or even HR tools, things like that. And so now that we know all the different tools, we then look back to our pillars and say, what are all those different roles? So breaking it down is now we have all of our different roles, we know our value streams, and then we also know those point solutions. So then we can start to lay out what is the architecture of how Nymbl needs to run their business.
So this is, us eating our own dog food, right? We're nearly a 100-person company. We have this number of workspaces. We have this number of value streams. Our enterprise clients have, much larger scale of systems they need to address in their own processes here. But it's tough to build a solution that just hits everything, across the board. So what we do next is we zero in and say, all right, let's work with your sales teams and understand what they're looking for. And we kind of we infer priority. We work with the client on what the roadmap would look like to address the different business groups. But when we start there, we zero in on the processes that would add the most value, and then the systems those processes touch. So in our world, we have our own custom operating system we've developed. We use Google to handle the collaboration, the media, and then we use Pandadoc to handle contracts. So those are the 3-point solutions that we're not going to reinvent the wheel on contract management and media management, but we have been able to optimize with our own custom development of our solution to support our sales teams. So now let's take a look at how the detail fleshes out. So this is just an example, but you can see the roles here on the left, and every one of these squares or boxes may end up being a technology. It's usually a set of user stories, but these are things that need to be addressed in the definition of the value stream here. So this is just an example of a drill-in. So from a user point of view, let's pretend, I'm a sales rep and I want to, start my day or do my work. So how do we take what they are looking for from an ideal, day-to-day tasks, and how does agentic AI or agents now mesh or merge with an application? So these are just some example requests or common tasks that a sales rep would do. And so I'm going to show you a bit of what that looks like now. So the first kind of key piece of communication here is that instead of just interacting, let's say a chatbot or Slack or Teams, we want to bring that forward through an assistant. So this assistant will have access to different enterprise systems, but it will also prompt you to, how do you start your day as a rep? We'll kind of remind you that you're inside, this sales team, because a lot of our clients have to wear multiple hats. So you kind of set your hat here, you set your role. There's some guidance on the left. But then we bring forward, like, what are the common data structures that they're used to dealing with? So they're used to working on deals, they're outreaching to clients, they're working on their follow-up tasks, or they're managing contracts. You can also be reminded in context of, like, what were you working on before? So the combination of the guidance of the assistant plus the quick navigation then brings you to that assistant being carried over. And once again, this assistant has access to one or more agents. And on the right-hand side, we bring what the human wants to see. They want to be able to process either data in a grid. They want to be able to natural language explain, I want to filter on certain data points. We have some visuals here. So this is what applications can bring to the table, but now they're empowered by an assistant on the left. So you can enter in, this is an example of a filter on the top left, or if you want to be able to change data, you can type that in natural language, and then the agent now, once you put it in through the chatbot or the assistant here, will then make that update to your data grid, but then you'll be able to visually validate that. When in our experience with implementing agents, we've observed that the user might just talk to Teams, but then they always go to the system of record to make sure it actually got updated. So in this case, we're showing that in real time, the agent sort of handling the security and the updates, behind the scenes, but then there's a visual validation of that on the right. And then you can go the other direction. So let's say I want to change the priority on the right, because sometimes you don't want to type things out. It might take longer. So you want to be able to make a modification to a grid of data, or maybe do some other type of user interaction, but then that can be then brought in context back to the assistant. So then if we know you made that change, we can highlight that as recent activity and say, look, you've changed that priority. Maybe you want to undo that change. Maybe you kick off another process to, send an email or trigger another agent to do a follow-up or generate a contract in this example. So we feel the visuals and the interaction of the assistants and the applications handling the security of the data behind the scenes. I mean, an experience like this is what I know sales reps are looking for, but you can apply this to all the role spaces in the organization. And because we have the capability of software development being more productive, we have the AI kind of creating that immediate value. This kind of comes together visually in a UI like this. Another example, this is just an example of our solution overview. This is an intelligent OCR example. So one of our customers still gets over 500,000 faxes a year. So they got to process those faxes. They're essentially orders. In the blue are sort of the AI components here, but ultimately we're sending over to a scheduling system, in this case, to do an appointment with a doctor. So this process here is represented through faxes that come in into a grid like this. So this is an application. You have easy access to this data. We do figure out a priority based on the data points that are passed. And then from here, we have a human in the loop. They're able to see faxes that come in. They can kind of click through that quickly. They see the fax itself, and we're observing a 95% accuracy rate with just prompting. So we're not having to design real estate areas or point to specific fields. The agent or the AI technology is reading this fax information and then putting that in a database or form for the human to validate or edit or reject or approve. Sometimes faxes aren't even orders, right? So there's got to be some type of way to reject or make modifications potentially. But once this is visually validated or maybe edited by a human, then they hit approve, and that goes into their information management system, which then does all the scheduling and handles the appointment. So we see a lot of applications like this, think invoicing information, anyone that's still getting paper, perhaps. But this is still a reality today, and AI will kind of get us a way to address this. Over time, we expect this to be a little more digital, but it still happens with our customers, and this is a way to practically address it without much development overhead. Yeah, and another example of being able to make edits here on the right. So we showed two examples. So one is an agent with an assistant. One is more of an intelligent OCR example. So, with all that being said, I mean, this is a lot of, capability that we're introducing. We recognize that, in order to get to this value stream conversation, we have a very structured kind of initial engagement to help, intake and listen to the different business groups and develop a roadmap similar to what we showed in our business for your organization. And then we can also assess like where you are today. So we know it's not just a cookie cutter approach kind of going across the board. Like, are you replacing an existing system? Are you looking to build something new to bring to your end users? We work with our startups, so they kind of have a different path. But all these phases that you engage with Nymbl on go through these standard set of stages. So you can expect to see a plan about how you're going to set that investment in that broader strategy, the assets for user stories essentially, or all the other data development assets that you need to start development. And ultimately, we recognize that once things are development, there has to be support and enablement as a quick follow. So we have a standard where all these phases run through these stages, and then there's kind of structured outputs for each. And this is some level of how you get started is a common way that our clients will engage. So from here, there's probably a question about the technology stacks that we use. We sort of zeroed down into the ones that we've seen the most success with. There is some, the biggest influence that we've seen on the application side is whether you're a startup or an enterprise. And then some of these solutions lead to a blend or an integration to full stack development. And then we're starting to see the introduction of leaders, thought leaders, especially for the enterprise and agentic AI. So we've developed partnerships with all these technologies here. There are more that we consider in our capability, but these are the ones that kind of represent the example of different capabilities we have in Nymbl's offerings. So from this, timing wise, we did pretty good. We're almost landing at 11:30 here. So we promised a 30-minute segment just to kind of tie us out here. Our message is to take this system level approach when you're introducing this new AI capability. And, rather than being reactive and trying to implement, a build burst by concept, like kind of step back and look at what the organization needs. Are also, as we represented in the visuals there, applications and agentic AI working together. So it's not really just only an app or only an agent. We're starting to see the combination of those two working together is really what gets our business counterparts excited about developing these custom solutions. And because of AI, just developing custom is now more productive. Like it's more viable to create these integrations or applications quickly. And we're seeing that through our low-code partners, through our clients' development teams themselves, So this type of approach is more relevant than ever because of AI, supporting that, and also as an additional capability inside an application. All right, so let's see if we have any questions. All right. So first question, how can businesses assess whether their current systems are ready to incorporate agentic AI? So there's sort of two layers to that. So one is the first piece is addressing any data requirements that you have. So you can deploy an agent or even build your own agent today. If you go, if you use agent.ai, like that's one way to show like the power what an agent can do. But in order to bring that to an enterprise, you really have to assess the back-end point solution system landscape that you have, and which one of those systems do you want to provide access to an agent. And then if there's security concerns or data concerns, then you have to consider, okay, is this is there an on-premise implementation of agentic AI? So do you want to set up your own private cloud to set up your large language models so that you're not sending data externally that might be sensitive? So enterprises tend to have to deal with this sort of like data assessment project, right, to understand how their data could be engineered to support an agent. But they also have to deal with any compliance concerns, like not being able to share PII data, for example. Like in that example I showed you with the healthcare company, we had to develop a private cloud solution on AWS and ensure that everything was contained securely in their implementation. Another question is, so kind of how does Nymbl take on an approach of its own custom solution? So maybe I can kind of navigate back to one of these slides here. So we always recognize that we're not going to be able to 100% put Nymbl logos across the board. Like we want to be able to integrate, what makes sense for our size of an organization. So Wave handles our invoicing process, Gusto handles our HR process, and all the tax stuff. So there are ways, and there's going to be reasons over and over again to ensure that you have the right point solution for the organization. And then what those point solutions don't solve end up being that white space, which 5 years ago was solved through enterprise application development or low code applications, and now we're seeing more of that through custom development. So we're not, we don't see a world where you're going to have to be able to replace everything, because it's just some of these point solutions are going to be the best in the business at that. But because of iPaaS and API capabilities, you can integrate them into your workflow, quite seamlessly.
And then another reason that you're not gonna want to go recreate some of these, like Gusto, for instance, HR, is because when a company has that, they're taking on the support and they're constantly making it better. Their whole purpose is, how do I make this software as best as possible? So then you're leveraging their learnings and what they're finding in the iterations and the different versions that they're creating.
Another one is, what challenges are you seeing when you're developing agents for the enterprise? A little bit close to the assessment one. It's also, this technology is very new. So one of the benefits of working with us is we're having to go through and actually like find the practical limitations when we're incorporating these tools. I think one of the challenges we have is just deciding which technologies to use sometimes, because oftentimes there's research that comes in from our clients, and it might, like what they're suggesting might not fit, the use case that they're looking for. And we want to make sure that we're picking the right tool. So we kind of leverage our research across our multiple projects. So there's a bit of that tool, which is why we have the advisory engagement in the beginning, right? A bit of like, what components of AI are we using in our solution? The other one I hear a lot is, how do we anticipate all the different questions that could be asked, from the sales reps, or from the different user groups? And that is a challenge. I mean, you have to really map. That's why we do the process side of things. As they're running a business process, then they should be asking for these things along the way. And anything outside of that process is probably not, a fit inside that workspace, right? You wouldn't, as a sales rep, you wouldn't maybe ask like while you're doing your sales work, what's a financial forecast look like for the organization? Like you would kind of keep it in context of what you're looking for, and that sort of narrows the development that needs to be taken on to make sure the agent's responding productively to the request. So that's commonly a challenge that we see, but it helps to have the process defined and then narrowing the focus with the workspace, make sure that we're developing the right things. All right, I have another one here. So one question is like, how do we actually get a large organization or an enterprise of that matter comfortable when they're trying out with these new tools? So there's two approaches to that. So one of the things that we've practically done is we've stood up and managed our clients' AWS environments. We kind of had to pick a platform or cloud operation system, to enable rapid proof of concepts, which is why we got into the cloud infrastructure space. So because we can deploy AWS to help get started and we can show how it works, then there's a transition oftentimes the client is an AWS team that help them get set up to take over the architecture that we've created. So that helps get started. And usually, if it's not AWS, let's say it's something else, we'll bring in an expert to at least get going. So that's one part of it. The other piece that helps is the low-code platforms are kind of structured to do this rapid development and iteration. So we can stand up an application using a low-code platform that then gets us access or to the capability of AI, and we're able to demonstrate that quickly in real time. The challenge is always getting like real relevant data from the customer. So AI kind of helps with that. Like you can give us a small sample set and then we can sort of like have AI synthetically generate more data, which is cool. But that's always going to, I think, for a proof of concept, we just have to set the expectation that we're not going to use, live data, of course, but we have a sample set and then we can, make that sample set more robust with AI. So. And maybe like adding on to that, because we have the partnerships with some of the technology companies I shared with, when there is more questions about their capabilities, or patterns that they've seen with their other clients, we can set up that introduction and they can work directly with some of the teams of, let's say, a Retool or MoveWorks, and work with them directly if they have more questions about the company itself. All right. Let me see. We kind of answered some of these already. So are there specific areas in the enterprise that agentic AI can make an immediate impact? So yes, and that also helps create buy-in as well. So, of all the workspaces that we identify, it's typically like employee productivity is kind of handled in the point solution. Like we see a lot of the Salesforces and SAPs introducing better experiences inside the point solution. But when it comes to anything that goes across system, which is typically quality control, so analyzing transcripts or emails, or how did any contract language get validated before it was signed off. So when it goes across departments, and you need that tedious sort of check across all the different potential data, quality control seems to be a very common one. We have another client that does supply chain optimization, and they're assessing millions of records of inventory data to set the right reorder points when manufacturing comes in. It's kind of related to the quality control, but it's helping with their inventory management levels, which is those having those agents kind of navigate across different ERPs is where we've seen the value there. And then general compliance and reporting as well. So just flagging like any potential areas to like streamline a report that needs to get generated, and kind of accelerating that process is another benefit. Yeah. So what tools or software are you using to build these agents? We're seeing there's a balance of this. So there's a lot of, because of the full stack development capabilities, there's a lot of experimentation, not necessarily at Nymbl, but some of our clients to build their own agents. The challenge that they run into is getting those into a production pipeline. Like you can POC or build an agent all you want, but how do you actually, to bring it to an enterprise, there's more structure there, right? If you're a startup, you might be able to, get it pretty far. So that's why we work with MoveWorks, because they have the foundation and they've sort of figured out well, the enterprise requirements, security requirements there. So we're building agents with them. For our startup segment, I haven't seen a platform that is like, yes, let's partner with them and figure it out, because they tend to want to build it themselves. But when it comes to enterprise, I think that's where we're going to start to see sort of like how we have low code platforms today. There's going to be the agentic platforms, and we're going to see more of those in that space. So because it's early days, we have one partnership now, and we typically work, try to work with the best, and there's a lot developing there in terms of that relationship. Cool. Yeah, so I think hopefully this was helpful to everybody in terms of like seeing the visuals and how it all comes together. So I know we start off, business centric, and then we break it down to the technical execution, which is, standard with our Nymbl process. Um, as far as any types of follow-ups, feel free to like email info@nymbl.app, and we'll also share the recording here. So I kind of hopped around, but we'll share the recording of this. And also, we do have our white paper. If you just go to our website, the AI white paper is readily available there. It has a lot of detail in terms of how we develop the intelligent OCR solution, some of the agentic AI part of it too. But there's the depth of this presentation was kind of captured inside that white paper. And then, yeah, if you just want to see further demos of what we've developed, that's what we love to do. So, certain use cases we kind of rebuild in-house so that we can show it. But there's anything you want to talk through in terms of AI capability or even other AI categories, we're happy to do that. All right. Well, thanks, Blair, also for your side of the presentation, and appreciate everyone's time.
Everyone.